Good afternoon and welcome back to TVP World. My name is Alex Tomlinski and these are the latest updates in the world news. U.S. President Donald Trump's global tariffs have been dealt a major blow after an American trade court ruled the import levies illegal. The decision is expected to have knock-on effects around Europe and shape those high-stakes transatlantic trade talks. We are now joined by our EU correspondent Angela Skujins in Brussels. Angela, so what has the reaction been on the continent?
Yes, so it's been quite a muted response so far. Nothing major from any European leader. This includes the top Brussels brass. However, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, in a speech delivered in Aachen, Germany, used her time at the lectern to deliver a potential swipe at the US administration. She said that she hoped that favourable tariff negotiations could be brokered between these two major trading partners. Same goes for European Council President Antonio Costa, speaking in São Paulo, Brazil, this afternoon, using his time to puff up relations between the EU as well as that South America trading partner, stating that this trade relationship was built on a foundation of mutual trust. However, we are hoping for some commentary, particularly from the EU executive, as we know that the EU Commissioner for Trade, Maroš Šefčovič, has been engaged with back-to-back talks with his trade counterpart in Washington since US President Donald Trump outlined his Liberation Day tariffs, that 20% tariff imposed on all European goods as of the 2nd of April, which has rattled markets as well as businesses and traders across this trillion-dollar transatlantic trade relationship. Now, this all comes back to that ruling that came in overnight from the US Court of International Trade, which found that these unilateral tariffs that Donald Trump slapped on countries was in fact illegal. However, there is no total reprieve for those sectors, particularly aluminium and steel, car and car parts, which will still be targeted with that 20% import levy. However, the timeline is that Donald Trump has 10 days to wind back those 20% tariffs on EU goods, but we know that he intends to appeal this decision at the Supreme Court. So this transatlantic trade war, the turbulence it created, is not yet over. However, we are hoping for some kind of reprieve and commentary from the Commission itself. But that's all from Brussels. I'll send it back to you in Warsaw.
All right, that was Angela Skujins coming to us live from Brussels. Thank you very much for that comprehensive report. Moving on now, but staying in Europe, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said that freedom and democracy are worth standing up for, in a riposte to the U.S. administration's criticisms of EU values earlier this year. Merz's remarks come a day after the U.S. said it would impose visa bans on foreign nationals it deemed to be censoring Americans, which could include officials regulating U.S. tech companies.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance confronted us with this question in his own way in Munich at the beginning of this year. What is it that we Europeans are defending together? What is it that we are standing for together? We don't have just any answer to this question. We have the strongest and best answer imaginable. It is that we in Europe stand for what we have devised, developed and achieved together over the centuries, through countless setbacks and disasters. And also what we have fought for, namely the conviction that freedom and democracy are worth standing up for and, if necessary, fighting to preserve.
Ukraine's foreign ministry spokesperson Heorhii Tyk-hyi said that Russia has not yet sent its memorandum for peace to Ukraine. This follows a proposal from Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov for a second round of negotiations in Istanbul, reportedly scheduled for June 2nd.
Heorhii Tyk-hyi said that Russia's failure to send Ukraine its peace memorandum is likely due to the document containing an ultimatum that Kiev cannot agree to, adding that Moscow is afraid of being accused of blocking the peace process. On Wednesday, Russia said it was ready to present their peace settlement memorandum to the Ukrainian side, outlining what it wants in exchange for a ceasefire and a peace agreement. The Russian delegation to the second round of talks in Istanbul, led by negotiator Vladimir Medinsky, would also provide, quote, necessary clarifications to the peace memorandum. According to Reuters, citing sources familiar with the negotiations, one of these demands is for Western leaders to pledge in writing to stop enlarging NATO eastwards, a so-called grievance Russia has previously pointed towards as one of the reasons for invading Ukraine.
In Latvia, the Shield 25 exercises have kicked off, aiming to enhance air defense cooperation within NATO. Allied troops are developing their proficiency in the use of Norwegian advanced surface-to-air missile systems to aid other NATO forces in potential combat.
One of the main advantages is that it can work integrated into the NATINAMS, which is the NATO integrated air and missile defense system. This interoperability allows us to effectively operate alongside other NATO forces, and that allows us to contribute to the deterrence effort on the eastern flank of NATO.
To ensure that Latvia's armed forces, together with allies, are prepared to defend our people, our values, and the territorial integrity of our nation.
On Wednesday, the Czech Republic accused Chinese state security-affiliated group APT-31 of conducting a cyber attack on the country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, gaining access to its internal communications. Cybersecurity expert Jan Michalczak joined us at TVP World to discuss the relationship between Prague and Beijing in light of recent allegations.
Our former president, Miloš Zeman, was trying to push a comprehensive friendship and economic cooperation with China. He promised a trade deal amounting to multiple 100 billion Czech crowns with China, and those deals never materialized. Just the fact that 3 intelligence services have been working in conjunction, and they've said that for a long time they've been following this trace, even together with allies in the EU and NATO who've corroborated the evidence. For example, the British and the US authorities said that they've seen very similar patterns of APT-31 targeting themselves. So that
Writing on social media, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk stated that Warsaw will maintain threat levels Bravo and Bravo CRP for the country, given foreign attempts of interfering with Poland's electoral process. The country uses a 4-degree threat and readiness level scale, rising in severity from Alpha to Delta.
In light of the continued hybrid and cyberspace threats we are currently facing from Russia and Belarus, I signed a decision that keeps the threat levels Bravo and Bravo CRP in force. This will help us prevent growing attempts from foreign powers to interfere with our electoral process.
And with only a few days left until Poland's presidential runoff, the polls are showing an incredibly tight race between the centrist Warsaw Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski and right-wing opposition candidate Karol Nawrocki. For many young voters, neither candidate from the 2 biggest parties seems particularly attractive.
Honestly, I'm not sure about either candidate, but I hope that the new president will first stabilize the situation and work with the government so that the level of reforms that will follow the 8 years we've had previously will finally begin.
It's nice to pay low taxes or not pay them at all, but who will then pay for public nurseries? Where will we get the money from? We should focus on demographics first and foremost.
I would like changes to happen. For 20 years, we've been getting tired of the war between 2 old men who no longer even remember what they argued about.
I hope that the future president will rise to the occasion and not be a person who discriminates. I hope they will give equal opportunities and be someone we can rely on, who will stand up for people rather than against them.
Staying in Poland, where the regional prosecutor's office in the country's southeastern city of Rzeszów is investigating the purchase of Israeli-made software called Hermes, used to monitor and gather data available online under the previous Law and Justice government. The purchase took place in 2020 and cost the taxpayers approximately $4 million. According to media investigations, the Hermes system was then used to monitor journalists and judges. Prosecutor Jaromir Rybczak says he's collecting evidence and hearing witness testimony in order to charge former national prosecutor Bogdan Święczkowski with gross mismanagement of public finances. However, according to the prosecutor's press release, the investigation is also focusing on the alleged use of Hermes software for illegal purposes. And with that, we conclude this edition of The World News. But as always, do stay tuned to TVP World for more breaking news, updates, and commentary.